Welcome everyone to another OCD Recovery YouTube video where I'm going to be talking a little bit about perspectives for life by looking at gratitude and looking at difficult life situations and how we can use those to empower us and change the way we live. And I thought about doing this video today because I'm in Berlin. I'm doing some face-to-face one-to-ones here, and I was thinking today when I was walking around the Holocaust Memorial about how quickly that gives you. Although I'm very much I read a lot of history, and I'm very much aware of history and sort of immense suffering and difficult psychological situations that humans find themselves in times of war and all sorts of things like that. Like even the book on our reading list by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. A Holocaust survivor who lost members of his family in the Holocaust wrote a book all about survival, even in the most difficult times, and finding meaning from suffering. And when I was walking through the Holocaust Memorial today, I thought about that and the perspective shifts and the feeling of it, because the Holocaust Memorial are these large concrete pillars that you walk through, and then they are designed to sort of create a certain feeling in each of us. And when you go in it, the feeling I got was very much a sort of feeling of trapped, a feeling of kind of overpowering sadness, being pushed all around by sort of control as they sort of leaned over me, and then you get sort of lost in a maze there because it's in a maze-like structure, and just feeling very much sort of alone and squashed in. And that's the feeling I got. And when I was walking around that, and I was thinking about the Holocaust and the incredible suffering that people would have experienced, and what that would have been like psychologically, because I was trying to think of it all in depth, which you can't obviously picture psychologically exactly what that would have felt like having not experienced it, but you're trying to picture that. And when I was in that statue, when I talk about perspective shifts and realizations, when you're going through the recovery journey, that's a long sequence of loads of light bulb moments that all go along and step by step lead the way, sort of shine the light of the way towards OCD recovery as you're shifting with all these eureka moments. And when I went to the Holocaust Memorial, it gives that sort of very sudden shift in your mind. Same as when I went to other things here, like to the Berlin Wall, and then looked at the death strip, where you've got the two walls, and when people climbed over one, they then had to sort of get across to the next wall, and the chance of survival was extremely difficult. And you've got mines there and all sorts, and being shot from a watchtower. And when I was peering through the concrete there, sort of picturing what they would think about to sort of mount this wall and get through the next one, you can't even conjure up how immensely anxious and how desperate you'd have to be in that situation, which obviously they were. And then walking around the museum and all the escape routes that people took, and through jumping out of windows and dying to try and to get over, or climbing into suitcases and into petrol tanks of cars, and every invention, small submarines that had been invented, small oxygen tanks that they'd made from sort of their own things they could find, just horrendously dangerous things in that quest for survival and to get to the other side, perhaps to meet their loved one that they're never going to see, their partner or whatever. And when you think about that situation in life, you really think about that desperation, that difficulty. That is so great for when facing difficulty yourself, taking that gratitude from that moment, taking that deep understanding of human survival and overcoming incredible obstacles. When I wake up in the morning, and throughout the day, I speak to myself in a compassionate but firm way with lots of wake-up calls. I don't sort of beat around the bush with facts in life that are going to leave me in trouble. I get straight to the core of it. So if I wake up and I'm looking in the mirror and I think to myself, right, today I've got to do all this stuff and this is a lot of work, like last week I was in Amsterdam doing face-to-face one-to-ones, and then here in Berlin, and then, as well as all the other calls that we do and running everything. And, it's a lot of work. And sometimes I think in the morning, I think, God, I've got a lot to do today, and how I get through that. Not anxious, but just thinking of it. And then when I think of something like, but what about somebody just about to mount the Berlin Wall that could face sudden death from a watchtower or a mine, yeah? And then it puts everything in perspective. Like, I've done some very hard exposures in my life, but I haven't done an exposure like that, right? And that would be the ultimate facing fear kind of exposure in that situation, right? And so to think of these things and think in the moment of the things that humans have overcome and that humans have changed their behaviors to pull off these tasks. Like someone, of course, would have been incredibly nervous thinking about climbing the Berlin Wall and being shot. They wouldn't want to do it. They'd be thinking of it for days, weeks, days, all the time. And, I can't do this. There's no way I can do this, and building up the courage and do it. And then once you've got over, there's no turning back. You've got to go through with it. And you may be nervous, you may be shaking, you may be sick, you may not have eaten, you may feel like you're going to pass out. Just to imagine that, and I will be going on many different trips like this because I love history, particularly the history relating to the war, and I certainly don't love visiting a lot of these things when it's not it's an intrigue to see what's happened with the war, and very interesting to see, but incredibly sad and horror and just general alertness to how humans can go down such negative paths if led in the wrong way by society in terms of what we're talking about here. And so, I think it's very important to see all these things, and I find them very interesting from a mental perspective shift myself in realizing and seeing how life can be in the darkest, bleakest of times, and how grateful I need to be today of being healthy, being able to eat food and buy dinner and be able to connect with friends and have a laugh and do all the necessities that we have in our lives that so many people didn't have. I was just talking to an Israeli artist who just sent me a message when I posted the Berlin Holocaust Memorial, and she was saying to me that her grandfather was a Holocaust survivor, and she was walking past the rubbish bin with her father and grandfather, and her father said, "Oh, look at all this rubbish here, it smells so awful." And grandfather said, "Rubbish is life. We didn't have any rubbish in the ghetto." Now, just to imagine a perspective shift like that and how quickly sort of a gratitude for there being rubbish because there was none at those horrible times. These kind of perspective shifts are so deep and so life-changing when you look for them. When you listen to these stories and you really think, you will then stop sort of complaining about things that are so trivial that we do. Humans do it. We do it. Even when we're really rational, and no matter what humans have been through. I was speaking to a cancer survivor a couple of months ago who was sort of saying to me, a couple of years ago, I thought I was going to be dead, and I was so grateful for everything. But now I've started getting caught up all life's trivialities, because you get back into that cycle as life continues. You easily get back into that. So we've got to make ourselves consciously aware of these things. We've got to look at these things, and we've got to think, this is how I need to change my mind. I need to be really aware of this, not overly aware, constantly repeating itself, but just being more aware of it, because that will significantly help you with how you're going through life. That will significantly help you learn to not be anxious in times of distress, times of real struggles, and like when you are facing these mental walls in any area of life, be it OCD, careers, relationships, whatever. And that patience, changing perspectives, wearing uncomfortable feelings, gratitude are all the key elements of the recovery journey, which we talk about all the time on this channel, because we believe so much in deep perspective shifts, because that is so key to adjusting to life. Because OCD is going for life, it's going for things in the past, in the future, and it can't often just be dismissed with thoughts are thoughts, leave thoughts there. It often needs more depth to get underneath it to release, particularly where chronic guilt, for example, is concerned. You can sit with it for years, and it's often just clinging in there because there isn't a deeper level of acceptance, so that your brain and mind and you can see that it's not warranted to keep yourself chronically tortured and anxious endlessly. I will be talking more on this subject and on these insights when I've got time on here, which I will be making time for to do, as I have different insights on things that I think will be beneficial to you along the recovery journey. I will get back on here in the next couple of days and do a few more videos. So I look forward to seeing you guys in the next couple of days on here. All right, guys. And last point is we've got the OCD Recovery Webinar, part 1, 2, and 3, starting tomorrow, where we'll be going all through the journey of OCD recovery. So that's good for people who are beginners to this and people who have been following us for a long time and learned a lot about OCD. It will be great for you too. And Nick will be speaking, talking all about his journey and chronic guilt and unconditional self-acceptance and sensations, fear of fear, and all of that in great depth. So if you want to come to that, email info@ocdrecovery.com to book a place. All right, guys, see you soon. Take it easy.